It is the Nightcap on 700 WLW, another session of American history on the radio. And this guy, once I started opening up the career and the bio on this guy, I was more blown away than by the stories I'd heard to this point. And I'm looking for some more stories from the one and only Joey Reynolds, longtime radio show host, disc jockey, maybe the original shock jock, a guy who got suspended once for calling the mayor a dumb broad, and his first words back when he got reinstated was, "I still think she's a dumb broad." I respect that. Just the ability to stand behind your words. Joey Reynolds, good evening and welcome to the Nightcap.
Thank you. I'm sitting next to a woman driver. I'm in a car. I'm on the Long Island Expressway, and she is not liking the dumb broad comment.
Well, then
she doesn't think that was very funny.
Well, that's probably because she's not a dumb broad, Joey. That's what I would suggest.
Oh, that's right. You got that right. That's exactly right. She's a smart broad.
So Buffalo, New York City at WNBC, WOR, KQV in Pittsburgh, Los Angeles, Hartford,
God, you don't have enough time.
Cleveland.
We only have 15 minutes. You can't mention all the call letters.
Oh my God! Well, just mentioning all the cities ate up a minute. Joey,
why don't you start with the ones that have been fired from? You got a better shot.
How many were you fired from, Joey?
I don't know. Who counts? I never count them. I'm just being funny. But is this the 700 Club?
This is not. Well, it's a 700 station. It's not the 700 Club. But if you praise the Lord,
I thought you were gonna ask me for money. If
you praise the Lord, I'll pass the ammunition. How about that?
Oh yeah. What was it? Was that Billy? What was her name? Billie Jean King? No. That's Martin Luther.
So you're talking about Tammy Faye Baker?
Yeah, you know what that was the PTL Club. PTL.
That was a PTL Club.
I know what that stands for.
What?
Pay the Lord.
Pay the Lord. Well, you know what? And to my understanding, that's not really necessary. But I also wanted to ask you, in calling your personal number and getting your voicemail a couple of times, this story about cheesecake, and I know that radio's best friend Art Volo had a birthday party. You were there at his house in Michigan, and you brought cheesecake. What is the fascination with cheesecake, and do you still make cheesecake, Joey?
Okay, it's a very honest question, and I did not bring cheesecake. Art took me to Costco, and we bought the ingredients, and I made 5 of them in his home.
Okay.
And they were wonderful cheesecakes. They're key lime, and I usually I have a company that I started called Joey Reynolds Cheesecake because I wanted to be like Paul Newman when I grow up, which is to leave a charity behind me and not have to be known for my bad work on the radio anymore.
Right.
And the same thing happened with Jimmy Dean, except, he was the guy just, after he made those sausages, he just quit. But, I want to be known for having fed America. And I came up with this idea at church, speaking of the PTL. And I mastered making the cheesecake because the food at church was so terrible. I said, we got to have some dessert that's not this bad with all the sugar and everything.
Yeah.
So I went out and I used a lot of sugar and made something just as bad.
So Joey Reynolds cheesecakes, they're still there? They're still operating?
Yeah. So So I made it at church, and then I stopped it for years, and I sold it at Bloomingdale's, where I did a cooking demonstration. I'm from Buffalo, Yeah. I know you're going to say, why can't you be from normal parents? But I had my mother and father in Buffalo, New York, were very, very good with food, and I learned how to cook when I was a kid for survival. And it was a wonderful thing to have as an avocation. But I hated chicken wings, and that's like almost being anti-American.
That's sacrilegious in Buffalo, New York. Yes.
Oh my God, yeah. We worshipped wings. As a matter of fact, I had a great thing. I had a great radio show at one time. Yeah. And when I was popular on the radio, I had done something that was remarkable. I had made a career out of chicken wings and bowling. And, those are two things that people should never, ever be famous for.
unless you're Dick Weber or Colonel Sanders, yes.
Yeah, well, I did do a commercial about the Tomb of the Unknown Bowler. That did work pretty well.
That's hilarious. Now, I just found out something today in the research for this interview, Joey, that I did not know about you and about my career. And here's how they intersect. And I'm not the only one, believe me, because this was a stunt that went all over the country long after you had perfected it. The Four Seasons song that you played over and over and over again and locked the studio door, played for over an hour, station management, police, paramedics all show up just in case you're not alive or there's something terribly wrong. And it was just a stunt. Now, every disc jockey after that point who had any kind of wanting to be on the map stole that bit. In 1982, I'm 21 years old in Chattanooga, Tennessee, on KZ 106 FM, the 100,000 watt station that's perennial number one. And I'm working 10 to midnight, and they set it up for me. Here, Gary, Jeff, this is what we're going to do. You're gonna play this new song, and you're just going to let it play over and over and over again. And don't answer the phones. Act like the door is locked to the studio. So we did that whole bit with Joan Jett's I Love Rock and Roll. And it was done in Cincinnati, I believe, with Billy Squier and The Stroke in the 80s. But I didn't realize that all of this spawned from Joey Reynolds. Thank you.
1966.
Yep. So what song was it?
Let me tell you about it. Wait. Here's this.
Hello?
Jared, let me just tell you this.
All right.
First of all, I did lock myself in the studio. I had 2 acetate discs. I did not have finished product. They came from a recording session with Bob Crew, who was the producer of Sherry.
Yeah.
And the Four Seasons were background singers. They were not featured artists.
Okay.
And he put a board on the floor and did that foot stomping, and he used a minimum amount of instruments at a basement hotel studio in New York, and I was there. So when you finish a recording session, usually you make a copy of it so you can know how to mix the song later. And that's what he did. He gave me 2 acetate copies. All right. One for me to keep and another one to give to my friend who was the program director. I will get to that in a second. So I took both discs when I got back on a Monday night. This was a Sunday recording session, and I had 2 turntables, and I went from one turntable to the next till I wore the discs out. So that was about 20 minutes. And then I made that a half hour and an hour and 4 hours until I was actually playing the felt on the turntable.
Oh, jeez.
I'd worn the discs out entirely, but the studio was locked. I was not answering phones, and so the people were all upset. They were wondering what's going on with the station, and it wasn't common in those days. So they called the police. The police came. They arrested me, and they had to turn the station over. Now, the reason I was able to get away with that, because in any other station, the program director would call, the manager would be there, the engineers would turn the equipment off, and you would be off the air. But the only reason I was able to do that is because my program director was Morton Downey Jr., and he was crazier than me. So, you got a guy that allowed that to happen, so we both got arrested.
How can you get arrested for simply playing a song over and over again on the radio? What was the charge?
Because the charge was that I was disrupting the community, and I'm living across the street from the governor of the state, and his son was with me. Kevin Dempsey. He was Governor Dempsey's son. He was a fan. And he would walk across from the city dwelling, where the residence, where the governor lived. I mean, it was the whole story. This didn't just happen like I played a record. And now when they put it on the Jersey Boys, I wasn't in the play, but Frankie and I are best of friends. So, we all know what I did. I started their career. And inadvertently, I didn't sit there and plan it. They were background singers, and all of a sudden they became foreground. That's what happened.
Really?
Yes.
I've seen some bios of the Four Seasons, and I knew that they were another name before they were the Four Seasons.
Yeah, they're the Lovers or something like that. Which they didn't love each other. I don't know how the hell they chose that name.
No doubt.
But on the first album cover, I'm on the liner notes right on the back. The Sherry album is called Sherry. And Bob Kerr and I were friends. That's how it happened. It happened because of a friendship with the producer. And he did other hits. He had Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels. And, oh, my God, he did so many songs.
So
but I was always a friend of Bob's. I would always play his records. I didn't ever take payola. I was a fool. My father called me a schmuck.
So, I mean, what was the problem? You said they didn't even love each other. What was the problem? Was Frankie the problem? Was Gaudio the problem? What was the problem?
No, that wasn't. That would be like this is like TMZ. No, they were not wanting to be the foreground. They were not in the front. They were background musicians.
Gotcha.
And harmony. They did the harmony in the back, and Frankie's voice was the high end.
Sure.
And Nicky was the low end. And Bob Gaudio played the keyboard. He didn't sing.
Right.
Yeah, he didn't have that talent, And Tommy played guitar. Tommy DeVito was actually put the deal together, and that's who they argued with. I mean, I traveled with them. My way of getting paid from them was in the summertime. I took a couple weeks off, and I went on the road with them, and they paid me for emceeing the show.
Oh,
that's my idea of how I got my payoff.
That's great.
And Frankie did a theme song for me. It's became Big Girls Don't Cry, which actually was recorded in London with the London Symphony. And Bob's friend was Lionel Bard, who wrote Oliver on Broadway. And I stayed in the house with Andrew Lou Goldham, who was living with Marianne Faithfull, and she wasn't very faithful at all. And I traveled, I was traveling in that circuit. So, when you're a disc jockey and you have all these privileges, you usually have a pretty good fix on the artists. And they all love us because we make them famous. There isn't anybody in this career of mine that has been a bigger fan and more of a promoter than the promotion men. They would go around to the cities and they would bring the records to get them played. But the public doesn't even know we had them. They don't know we had them. There were guys that were on the road like salesmen, and they would bring the records to the program director or to the disc jockey, and they would say, okay, you got to play this. It's a big hit in Hartford. It's wonderful. It's doing great in L.A., and then we would get sucked into it.
Well,
and we'd start playing the record. It became local radio was so good, and WLW was the king of local radio. My God, probably still. And, is that the station that had the 500,000 watts?
Yep.
At one time?
Had a 500,000 watt transmitter. It was allowed to operate actually before World War II and never has been fired up again. But yes, had a 500,000 watt transmitter, AM transmitter.
Wow.
In the U.S.
You could pick that up on your toaster.
Well,
if you lived in Chicago.
There were people who were picking it up in their toilets near the tower. There's no question.
Well, I love your show. And I think you do a great job, and you've been a very, very powerful, big-name DJ for a lot of years. So don't you start acting like I was a bigger name than anybody. You were just up there with the rest of us. You were another slave to the artists, and we love them.
I can't believe
you're another one of those guys.
I can't believe that you had a chance to bring the Beatles to Buffalo the night after they had appeared on Ed Sullivan in February of 1964.
Yeah, that's because I was friends with Sid Bernstein, who promoted them and brought them to the U.S. And the seats at Shea Stadium were $5. So who didn't know what they were doing?
Oh gosh! Well, I tell you what, this is one. I know you did a 2-part interview with Oprah once. I don't know if you'll be up for joining me again at some point in the future, but we got a lot more ground to cover.
Oh, anytime. And you know what? When I get back on the air again, because you never give this up. I gave it up for Lent, but I forgot Lent is over.
Right.
But, when you have this in your blood, Somebody's talking to me going back on the air. A lot of people do that, but I don't want to do politics, and I don't want to answer phones. So I'm the wrong guy for that. And they don't want us to play records anymore, and they don't want us to sit there and just chaw like we're doing now easily. But you're doing it, and I want to be able to do this nationally again. And when I do that, you're going to be my first guest.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Joey, it's the only time that I feel normal when I'm on the air, so I know exactly what you mean about it. It's in our blood.
I don't mind. Listen, I'm going to flatter you. I don't care whether you like it or not. You can edit this out of this recording if you're recording, but you are a great jock, and you're a great personality, and you have a wonderful heart, and you have a big, big heart. You're serving your family and your community well. It should be said.
Well,
you're a really good man.
God bless you, Joey. Thank you so much. We're out. Joey Reynolds, the great Joey Reynolds, saying nice things about me that I did not pay him for. The Nightcap continues in moments on 700 WLW.
News Radio 700 WLW, Cincinnati.